Welcome to the Vital Doc Talk podcast. And today we have Dr. Pete on the show, who has been in the industry for 30 plus years. You can see the diplomas, et cetera, in his background. And why don't we dive right in? Dr. Pete, why don't you give an audience, the audience, a quick background?
My quick background is that I came out of chemistry and engineering, went into medicine, went into emergency medicine, went more into a mobile urgent care type of medicine, which led me into a large geriatric population of people that were homebound. And in dealing with this large geriatric population and the people that are homebound, I noticed that they were on a long list of medications that really was not helping them to feel better. So I learned how to use a form of naturopathy or natural medicine, which has now been coined functional medicine. So I work with the person in a functional medicine approach, looking at their GI tract, looking at how that inflammation that occurs in the gut can affect their brain, can affect their, the swelling that they have in their hands. For instance, if someone has swelling in their hands and they're eating bread, I said, well, stop eating the bread and let's see what happens in 3 or 4 days. And all of a sudden the swelling's gone down in their hands. So this is the kind of ways you can interact with working with a more of a functional medicine approach. And then my practice has gone into working a lot with intravenous therapies, that are personalized and specific for the people who have these various maladies with especially the GI tract.
Very interesting. And then did you always know that naturopathy, hopefully I said it right, was the path you were going to go down? Were you looking at any other doctor fields? Because sometimes when I'm talking to younger doctors, they're trying to figure out, like, where should I specialize,
I did. When I was during residency or after residence, that period of residency, I was looking for surgical. I was looking at orthopedics. And for some reason, it just didn't fit. There was something out there looming that was different from these disciplines. We were to a point where any ailment, here was a medication for it, rather than, well, wait a minute, why is that ailment occurring? And now we see how the environment has caused so much change in the way that people are these days as far as their health are concerned, that we are now seeing a whole shift of people more concerned with, making sure that the food that they eat weren't sprayed with some form of herbicide, or making sure that they're drinking clean water, to the point of where we're wearing masks so that people don't have to spread a virus. These are big changes.
Yeah. And these are really huge changes. How have you seen other doctors around you, by the way, in these times, obviously, of coronavirus, they're very difficult. How have you seen them survive, and what have you seen them to do to, maybe improve their practices or I guess evolve with the times?
I think that a lot of physicians are trying to reconfigure themselves. I mean, in many that they are in a form where they're set up with a hospital or set up with a clinic. I don't know if they're going to change that much, but telemedicine is definitely going to become very popular as far as seeing people who are not that are not urgent type of patients to see. Someone passing a kidney stone or a urinary, or having problems, are good to be coming in and seeing them to treat them. But your colds and things like that can be handled from a distance. And if they do not improve over a period of time of expectation, they come back and they say, what's going on? And you reconfigure your treatment plan.
And for telemedicine, I always like to ask this question. What EMR or EHR do you recommend? Do you have any that helps you with telemedicine, or how do you do telemedicine services today?
Currently right now, that's a good question. I am new into this various modalities of telemedicine, because there are so many services that are now available, and they're being offered to the physician for free, that they set up some kind of relationship which can interact with, let's say, the values that are coming from a laboratory or an imaging center, or things like this. So in and of itself, the spurt started several years ago, but all of a sudden we're just seeing a rapid incline of the services available. And we have been shown, because of the COVID, how these could be utilized to give the patient comfort, to give the medical board comfort that we're using it. I mean, this has gone 360 degrees.
Yeah. So Dr. Pete, actually, luckily on the Vital Doc Talk podcast, I don't really say this a lot, but we do have a doctor network. And so I'm happy to connect you to the other doctors that are currently doing telemedicine to give you their preferences. So back to the, I guess, your growth journey, right? How has the industry changed in terms of from a marketing perspective? I know when we talked, you said that's kind of the major takeaway you think doctors should implement.
Yes. When I started my practice, you were able to go ahead and set up seminars with patients, or people would come in and listen to your seminars to develop a sense of feeling good about what you're saying and your practice and everything, and to have some flyers go out to that was basically the source of the media. But then it became digital marketing. And not only did it become digital marketing, the average practitioner was competing with what would be considered the large groups. So they had a choice of either going with the large groups, but then again, they also had the choice of dealing with more of a digital marketing that would show that they are able to give these patients a personal effect, more of a concierge or treatment with them, by looking at what's going on with their DNA profile and how this could lead to an illness, or it could lead to a progression of inflammation. So it has changed a lot. There's so many pieces that have come into the system, but the marketing itself is really the most important change, and one that needs to be taken, exception to, that you have to direct yourself in marketing yourself.
Yeah, I think we talked about earlier how you could be selling rocks, and one guy could be getting nothing, but the other guy could start the pet rock company, as everybody knows, is turned to $1 million thing. So marketing is huge.
It is. It's not unusual for 10% of your income, gross income, is devoted to marketing.
Okay, that's good to know. That is actually what I tell doctors. I recommend, at least even in the beginning, right? Probably in the beginning of your practice, you've got to really spend, I've heard, as far as half your time marketing your practice, because you don't really have any patients anyways. What were you doing in the early days? Was just building relationship?
Well, that's an interesting question, because as a physician, when I came out of residency and started working, I was working in an emergency room. So I didn't need to actually market myself. It wasn't until when I started building a business, my own business, that I realized that marketing is the whole thing. Because if you could, if you could market yourself properly, you could have a rock and you'll have people just buy the rock. There was a pet rock that came out.
Yeah.
So what happened at that period of time is that I actually did go ahead and get a MBA from Pepperdine's executive course. But again, it's still, you had to put the shoe leather, wear the shoe leather off and walk from place to place to place with flyers saying, this is who I am and this is what I do. And that was that's a beginning level, let me put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And now with digital marketing and with social marketing, the social media, it is really necessary to use these various tools that we have to get out to people, to introduce people quickly, to introduce yourself to people quickly, because they usually don't spend very long listening to what you have to introduce to. So it's like within the first 3 to 5 seconds of what you say, whether or not they're going to listen to you. So it's been a growth pattern for me. And realize also is that I have to, pay and expect to have a budget for marketing.
Do you have a specific social media channel that you feel is doing very well for you, or is maybe it's just referrals, because they're tried and true? What would you say is your number one source? Yeah.
The best referral that I have ever come up with is word of mouth. That is the best referral, but that is something that has to be developed. And so to get yourself out there, I would imagine working with Google and with Facebook and other forms of media to get yourself out is digital marketing. And just to try to, again, it's trying to drive everybody to your website. If you could capture their interest and then get them into your website just for the particulars to make, give things away that are for free, that with what you do, just to go ahead and to start to be friendly with people and show them that, you're a real happy person and you're there to help them and to achieve what they're trying to do, and to do it without being, stilted about it. That's what I found out.
And in terms of developing referrals, what are some strategies you've used, or do you have like a process you use to develop that relationship to ask for a referral or to receive a referral?
Yes, and it is very important that you need to have an action after every time you're trying to get someone to listen to you. So if you produce a really wonderful video that, let's say, how to make bread, but you don't say, and now for the secret ingredient of the recipe, just go ahead and send an email to me or contact me at my email, and I will send you the full secret recipe on how to do this. And then, show how delicious it is, and, something like that. You need to have that action step.
I love that. So after every client interaction, doctors should be thinking out there, what's the next action steps? Can you give us some examples of action steps that you've used?
One of them is that when people take a look at you, you actually ask them, because you're, first of all, I'm in a service industry. Medicine is a service industry. Mm-hmm. And the way a lot of services, Yelp is a big part of that service industry. You ask people to say, hey, I just pulled you out of the whatever, and I know you're really happy with it, and I'm really happy with what I did for you. But could you just go ahead and put a message on Yelp to show them that, that everything worked well? And then you get another referral from that Yelp, and it starts to build. That's just one technique. But you have to be careful with Yelp too. They're characters.
Yeah, I've heard that from multiple business owners, et cetera. Do your action steps right after the meetings, are they different from when you first meet someone versus like if you've known them for a long time? Because I'm imagining a lot of doctors that I talk to that are too concerned when it comes to asking for the referral, right? One tip I got from another doctor is you have to listen, and when they give you a compliment, that's a great time. So what's kind of the differentiation? How would you advise somebody to be more comfortable asking for the referral? Is it timing? What's the secret there?
Well, I think that in medicine, you could get real personal real fast because you have to, especially, with what I do, in order to understand where somebody is as an adult or an adolescent, I have to go back into childhood to see what was developing, because I'm actually looking at how their DNA is reacting to their environment that they're put into. And that will show me things like hormonal changes. That will show me things like mental changes and how they do things. And I work from that. So by the end of the first visit, they're no longer calling me Dr. Muran. They're calling me Dr. Pete, which is what I prefer, because that's my name. And you call me a doctor, okay, I'm a doctor too. But then, so when they start to get more of a friendlier atmosphere, or when you really kind of put the linkages together, and I have many patients say, no one ever told it to me that way, because I'm getting down to the basics where you're able to actually explain things. So like I do with the COVID virus, I'm able to explain how this cycle occurs, and this is why we do this, and this is how you form antibodies, and a very easy to understand concept. Then they're so grateful for someone explaining it like that. You could say, hey, do me a favor. I'm glad I'm able to help you. Could you just kind of send a Yelp for me? And they say, I'd be glad to.
Yeah, I love that. Especially, I didn't really think about that, but it's just so obvious, right? If you're a doctor, that is a very personal relationship. So you build a lot of rapport very fast. So you should feel comfortable there. So I like that. And in terms of those first conversations, is there like a social media channel that you think has worked the best so far, or has it been your website, your SEO that's been great? It sounds like you're working with a provider right now. So how did you pick them?
Well, the person who I picked is someone who's been a long-term friend who I interacted with, and he used to create. He was in digital marketing, but he created software for it. And then finally he went into it itself. So he was a very savvy guy. So that's really important that you find someone who's really understanding of you and what your wants are, and also someone who could direct you, because one of the first things that you need to really sit down is to create a website. And in creating websites, the best way to go about it is to actually go ahead and look at the various websites that do what you do and see how they explain themselves. And then what you do is that you look at that website with different questions like, God, would I want to go to that person? Is what they're doing really make sense if I was just a common Joe or Jane on the, who had a problem? Or does it get too technical? Because it needs to be explained in a way that it's understood. I speak and use the vocabulary is a lot different for me when I'm speaking to a physician or higher than when I'm speaking to someone who just never went to medical school or doesn't know the sciences.
100%.
So that's what your website should look like. So when someone picks it up, they're not going to say, wow, this guy's got some vocabulary. It's no, I'm really learning from just reading what this guy is saying. It makes sense. Well, I should go see him or girl.
That makes a ton of sense to me. You got to learn to speak in layman's terms, because the way obviously a doctor will think about a problem and the way a person will, they'll put completely different terms in on Google. People will say heart attack, not myocardial infarction, or so in terms of your website, I think also if you have 3 to 5 websites that you want yours to look like, that's also putting you a step ahead of everybody. So that's another golden tip. So it sounds like you got the website going, you got a great referral process. What are some of your tips for branding, for turning yourself into a brand? Obviously you're Dr. Pete, which is great. Love your advice there.
Well, the friend who I was talking with you about, who is a digital marketer, he is also has a branding group where they take you through, it's like a really intensive set of days of looking at what you have. They do the investigation of what's out there. They go ahead and see where you best fit and how you should present yourself. And then they create various people or various avenues of where you should market digitally, because it does if you don't at least get somewhere in the baseball field or on the target, then you end up using a lot of time and money to also contribute to problems and no patience.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because I used to, when I first started, I used to think having a brand did not matter, just get people in the door, get people out, etc. But now the way I think about it is it's that memory that you're building, and you got to build a consistent memory, whether it's the name, the experience, have it all unified. And I see how that really starts compounding for people over time. So I love that. So to get off marketing for a second and to go into challenges, what are kind of some of the early challenges you faced, or maybe also right now during coronavirus, and what would your tips be for people to overcome them?
Well, let me talk about my earliest challenge. My earliest challenge, I did graduate from an MBA program, but they never really taught me how to do marketing and sales, so to speak, on the level of something that's functional. I learned all about marketing. I learned how to do strategic sales, but until you're actually in the trenches doing it, you don't really catch on how you have to, what the behavior is and how you have to interact. And if that phone rings, then how you have to set up a system for yourself so that it does go systematically, not to be redundant, it goes systematically on how you interact with that person to actually get them to come in and see you. So that was the biggest challenge coming, because we don't learn that in medical school. So you're talking about 12 years after you graduate, 12 years from college. Yeah. From college to when you're actually a physician seeing patients, you're talking about 12 years. And unless you are adapt to cells and things from previous jobs, you don't carry that with you. As far as COVID virus is concerned, I am a research physician. So what I did is that I was able to go ahead and actually go into the depths of the science literature and see exactly how, and because my background's chemistry and engineering, and I enjoy this stuff, I'm kind of one of those nerds, but I'm a nice guy. So I was able to go into the literature and see how various bondings are occurring, or what's drawing the virus to. So what you do is that you really get into the essence of what you are. And then once you get into the essence of what you are and what you can contribute, that becomes a highlight. That's something that comes out of the branding sessions usually. That becomes a highlight of what you have, and then you become a niche marketer. And that would be a part of that.
Definitely a good tip to overcome that challenge. Focusing on a niche, right? Because there's a lot less competition, a lot faster to become a pro at it. So I think that's great advice. What would be one takeaway that if a doctor out there watching this interview, what would your advice be to them so that they could that you'd like them to take?
One takeaway, which is really important, and it's not only in your management, in your practice, it's also in life, that there's always going to be ups and downs. So when you're down, you're going, this is just not going to work. This is not going to make it. This is not it. You always say, hey, 2 weeks ago, I climbed a mountain and I was able to get up to the top, and what a beautiful view. Okay, I had to come back down to the valley again, but there's always going to be the ups and downs to it. And it's getting something and keeping a positive attitude. Attitude is everything. Keeping a positive attitude of what you're doing and who you're helping and where you want to go with this, that is the most important tip.
I love that tip. I think, for keeping a positive attitude is definitely fantastic. What are your tips for keeping a positive attitude? Is there like a, song, you listen to your favorite songs? Is there a quote you like to, look at, a poem?
My favorite attitude is basically what maintains that is my spiritualism. I'm very strong Christian, and I've gone through horrific physical and health ailments. I've gone through a lot of loss, just like people. That's what life is. But in times of loss, it seems like nobody really understands, not even the most expensive psychologists or psychiatrists who can give you drugs. They don't really understand you on how it's impacting you. They only understand from other people. So by looking at a higher power and realizing that there is, and saying, hey, I'm doing the best I can. I surrender to wherever I'm going with this, and allowing that to take you further than you thought you could ever go.
I love that. I think there's definitely a power in surrendering to the outcome and not trying to control everything. And I think it could bring you into the present. And it's also important to really connect with, either, a book or, material or, philosophy or religion that really helps you out. I think that's very important. And speaking of connecting, what would your tips be for doctors to connect with, mentors, et cetera, or, places to go for good advice? And then at the same time, how do we connect with you? And, what's your contact?
Mentors are good, but they're not the complete you. So you basically look at mentors that will accent you for what you're trying to do in the various levels. So it's not going to be one person. This is what I found. And in doing such, you're able to use your full spectrum. So you're not removing the green or the blue out of the light of your spectrum. You know, you're able to put those colors back into your spectrum of what you are, because you really, what you're marketing and what you're selling and your business and your life is really you. It's your characteristic. It's your personality. That's what needs to come forward. And everybody is a delight in their own way. And so you try to bring that out with the people that find interest in what you're trying to do.
And where could people find you?
The best way to reach me would be to go ahead and I usually give out my email, but it's not the best because it turns out I got more email and I don't always answer it quickly. So go on to the website. I think we have a common email there. And what happens is that will reach my assistants, and then they will, and just mention the interview, and they will go ahead and get that in front of me.
Okay, fantastic. And the website is lhcmed.com for everybody that doesn't know.
The website is lhc.com. That is the ending of my email. The website is longevityhealthcare.com.
Okay, great. So the website is longevityhealthcare.com. And any other content? You know what we can do? We can just edit this part out and re-edit it in. How about that?
That sounds great.
Okay.
And might want to spell it and put it on the screen just to assure that people know how to spell it.
Yeah. I put all the contact information in the YouTube. Do you also have a social handle, by the way? Or I guess I'll just tag you on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm all over it. And then I have people that work with me that actually look out for that. So they try to, steer me if something important comes through or someone's inquiring that I should take a look at.
Great. We can redo that again. So, all right. And sorry. No.
Okay, I'm back on.
All right, Dr. Pete, where can people find you?
I live in Newport Beach, California. Love it there. I'm really on the cusp of Newport and Huntington. I don't want to tell anybody I really live in Newport when I like to be more of a Huntington Beach attitude. But I'm also up in the central coast of California, San Luis Obispo. So that's where I'm in both places there.
Great. And your website is actually, do you want to spell it out? In this case, that's funny.
Yeah, it's LONGEVITY healthcare, HEALTHCARE.com, longevityhealthcare.com.
Awesome, guys. That's longevityhealthcare.com. And also, he's everywhere on social media. This was another episode of VitalDocTalk, and hopefully you got something important out of this interview. Thank you.
Thank you.